Throughout Avicii's career, there are different people who were instrumental in bringing his music to the world. Um, in the early parts of his career, there was one such individual all the way in Australia who became a fan and helped release Avicii's first music. This is Andy Van.
Hey guys, how are you? Hey,
How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing very well in this very unusual time of our lives.
Quite unusual. You getting by?
I am getting by, definitely, definitely.
Cool.
Producers like sitting in their studios anyway. So hey, I'm here for this for similar reasons.
Certainly. You have, I guess, been part of the beginning of
Yep.
the world finding out about Avicii. I mean, I know in Sweden, folks knew who he was, and through some of the DJs were getting, I guess, snippets of things that he was working on. But you helped to actually bring some of the first stuff out to the world. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, basically, for the people that don't know who I am, I run a record label in Australia called Vicious Recordings. So we've released lots of different music from artists throughout the years. We've been around for about 25 years. So we released Dirty South, tracks with Tommy Sunshine, Madison Avenue, Don't Call Me Baby. People may know that. And I was in a group called Vandalism, and I was invited to Sweden by a guy named Ash. And he asked us to do a vandalism show at a venue in Sweden and in Stockholm. And he said, "I'd like you to
What kind of music was Vandalism?
EDM,
Hmm.
basically. What you would do at that time, it was called electro, but the
Sure.
new name became EDM.
Right.
And then after that, basically Tim came to the gig and saw us, and we had dinner with him and. Afterwards, Ash said, "Well, Tim's got some tracks. Do you want to come back to his studio and have a listen to the tracks?" So I had a listen and immediately loved what I heard. At the time, people won't understand this sentence, but house music was not piano house music. So he was playing me music with lots of pianos, and I was like, "Wow, I think piano house music could really work." So basically, we signed him up almost straight away. He wasn't signed to any label and hadn't released anything, as far as I know. He had demos and things out, but we were the first label to sign him, and we signed him for an 8-track deal straight away. Yeah, his career started. That was in 2008.
In 2008. So, what were the first songs that you remember, like out of that track pick of eight?
Um,
What stood out?
I would say his first track was called "The Sound of Now," which was just his beginnings. And there was another track called "My Feelings for You," which did fantastically well, like absolutely blew up. And that's when Ash and myself were like, this guy can really go places. And at the same time as us releasing his music, Ash was running around speaking to Bob Sinclair and Tiesto and saying, "Please, can my artist Avicii remix your tracks?" And they, for free, basically. As far as I know, they were free remixes. And Ash was very good at, really going hard and getting people on board. And that was a great time for house music as well. And at that time, there were just basically blogs, and blogs were, basically writing about new and upcoming artists. Now they just write about huge artists. But at that time, blogs were all writing about new artists. And it was a really exciting time because I was able to email 50 blogs around the world, and virtually all of them would write about this new artist, Avicii. It was a very exciting time for young artists in what was at that time termed house/electro. And that's where Avicii was born, out of some early tracks and blog support.
Yeah, that's a good time. I think, blog support was so, I guess, helpful back then because folks really wanted to be on the cusp of what was new. They weren't trying to just follow what everyone else had done, right? It was part of
Yes,
that, still part of that
exactly.
culture in music where you were trying to be the first person to do something and not do what someone else did.
Correct. And I loved that time because it's not like that now. If you email 50 blogs, you'll get one response, maybe. It was so much about embracing new music. I don't know why, but I loved it because it was a brilliant time. And a lot of blogs were at the same time listing, bootlegs and illegal music, but at the same time listing amazing new artists, and so much talent was born out of that time. Dirty South was another artist at that time that was just born out of that great, I don't know, thirst for new music.
Did you ever get a chance to meet Avicii in Australia? Did he ever come around during that time?
Yeah, we I'm not sure if it was his first ever international tour, but we toured him to Australia, and this was around the time, if my memory serves me correctly, of My Feelings for You. And basically he did a gig, and he was the third on the bill. He wasn't even the first or the second artist on the bill. And we did the gigs in Melbourne and Sydney, and I immediately noticed lots of young boys at the front of the DJ console, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And I looked, and they were all Swedish boys that were all aware of this young Swedish artist breaking out. And it was quite exciting to see, because they were all just staring. They're, you know how kids sort of stand at the DJ console. They were all just kind of looking over the console, watching what he was doing. And he was just a young DJ himself. I remembered him talking to me about mixing and his nervousness about DJing at the time. And I was like, just get out there and enjoy it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to have a good time. That's the most. I've been DJing for 20 plus years. So he sort of spoke to me about how to present yourself. But it was all about that young, fresh approach that he had. And I love to see that in him.
That's really awesome. When you traveled the world and would head back to Sweden, did you get a chance to interact with him again?
Not so much in Sweden. We saw him quite a few times. I also introduced him to his agency, Spin Agency in America. And at the time, they were looking after us as an artist, as Vandalism. And I introduced Ash and Tim to Rob at the agency, and they took on Avicii straight away. Again, a fantastic thing, because he was an unknown artist. And I was like, guys, you've got to sign this guy. He's going to be big. And I was fantastically right on that front. And I saw him in the States quite a few times, actually, doing gigs. And as you would well know, they really embraced him in the States. And it was lovely to see a young, fresh, innocent artist getting such accolades all over the world, particularly in the States. And I saw quite a few of his tours in the States, and it was just a brilliant thing to see.
So at this point, who controls those 8 songs? Are they still part of your
Yes.
repertoire, or okay?
Yes.
Were
Yeah.
they
So if your viewers to this video go to Spotify, and there's a great Spotify playlist of all the best songs of Avicii, they'll see the 8. I don't think all 8 are there, but I think about 5 of them are there in the best songs of Avicii. And it's great because it's important. Firstly, thank you for interviewing me and showing people, because I think it's important in a lot of the information about Avicii. His early career is kind of brushed over, and everyone just says, oh, Levels, and he was huge. But music doesn't work that way, as I'm sure you know. There's a lot of hard work to that first hit. And yes, Levels was a monster hit beyond comprehension. But prior to that, I've got 25 demos, which I'll never release, but 25 demos from Avicii on my hard drive that are all just ideas of him germinating and experimenting and coming up with concepts. And yes, 8 of them did end up becoming tracks, but Levels wasn't his first track. And young producers need to know that, and young artists need to know that it's not about coming up with levels, because that sets a really high bar for young producers to say, well, you've got to make levels to become successful. No, you don't. You need to just love what you're doing and make demos and work on ideas. And hopefully those steps can lift you up to maybe make a Levels.
Sure. What did you hear in his early work that you could signal growth and development in their later works? And I'm talking really specifics like, risers, chord progressions, drops, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a very, very good question. And my wife actually asked me the similar questions. Sometimes when you hear a song, I've been doing A&R at my record label, Vicious Recordings, for 25 years. And there's something very unique, and it's in a vocal and it's in a melody, and it's only in 2 places. You don't get it from drums. You don't get it from effects. You just get it from 15 seconds or 30 seconds of a song, and it can be a vocal, and it just touches you in a certain way, and it's not a certain thing. So when I heard his demos, some of them were just what I would call club bangers, which is just a track that you can hear, and 5 minutes later there's another club banger, and you don't really recognize anything, but you enjoy them, and they're banging away in the club. There's something about a melody, and you immediately go, oh, I remember that melody. And you remember that melody 5 minutes later, 1 hour later, the next day. It's almost like a smell. Do you know what I mean? When you smell that, you go, wow, that's a rose,
I
or
remember
that's,
that. Yeah.
yes. And the same with his melodies. There was something about, one, the fact that he was doing piano over house music that no one was doing at the time. And that was the first thing that I went, wow, piano house is this could be big. I should sign this guy because this could be big. And the second one was he was very musical. And those musical melodies, as you would well know, are very beautiful to the ear. And again, that was something that I was like, wow, that is so creative to do it that way. And I immediately thought, we've got to sign that. And Dirty South, for people that don't know him, look him up. He's got some amazing tracks, and he was very musical as well. He wasn't a musician, but he made musical melodies, and they stick in your mind. And the same with a great vocal. And that's your world. And I'm sure you've got lots of demos where you've sung a vocal and it was like, that's a pretty good vocal. And then you sing another vocal and you go, that's special. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you might have spent 50 hours on that first vocal that goes nowhere. And you might have spent 1 hour on the amazing vocal, but it's just something about, I don't know, it's a magic. It's something that like just gels together. And I heard that in Avicii from those early demos, not in every demo. Again, I don't want people to think that every demo is going to have to be amazing. Ash would send me 3 demos and he would say, what do you think? And I would say, that one's pretty good. And then I would get another 3 demos a month later and another 3 demos. They're all like 1 minute, 2 minute songs. Nothing dramatic, nothing finished, but it was just about the germination of little ideas.
Did you keep in touch frequently with Tim, or were you more in communication with Ash?
Mainly with Ash, but certainly with Tim as well. Tim, as I'm sure you would know, is very much a head down in the computer sort of guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? That was his world. I think I actually saw him once walking to a gig, and he was carrying a laptop as he was walking to the gig. Yeah. It was literally an extension of his arm, which I thought was weird but great. Do you know what I mean? Because he just didn't want to waste a minute on having some sort of idea, which is why a lot of producers have a laptop right next to their bed. You know what I mean? Because you've got to germinate those ideas. So I think that was an amazing thing about Tim. And so a lot of our communication was to Ash,
like
and Ash
with Ash.
But the great thing is Ash wouldn't separate me from Tim. He would just say and forward my email on and go, Tim, see email from Andy, do this and do that and check this. And I know Ash was there in the studio with him talking about those ideas and talking about those suggestions. And they didn't do every suggestion. An A&R person can only suggest a certain amount of ideas. I'm not, the reason for his success. He interprets those ideas into the way that he thinks those ideas would work well in his tracks.
Right. Wow. So after that deal that you did for the 8 tracks, was there ever an offer for more, or an interest in coming back for more? Or were they setting sail for higher?
No, his 9th track was Levels. So, and his 9th track had hundreds of thousands of dollars offers from other labels around the world. And at the time, we were a pretty small label. We had done well with the Madison Avenue release, which was a multi-million selling release, but our other releases were small dance artists. So for us, offering hundreds of thousands of dollars for Levels was not possible for us. And at that time, EDM was literally blowing up worldwide. And in hindsight, of course, it would have been good for us to mortgage our houses and sign the track. But there was, it was his time to, it's almost like, a young adult leaving the nest, leaving the house. It was his time to go on to bigger and better things. And we've had other artists that have done similar things. And I applaud that, because we were part of his journey, and I was very happy to be part of that. But it's also great to see him then become one of the biggest artists in the world in dance music.
Absolutely. He sure did. Man, Andy, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story and experience with Tim. It's some information that a lot of people have never heard, and I think it's important for them to know the early part of his career.
And I thank you for one, spending this time for Tim. He was a beautiful individual, and it's the greatest shame. I felt so much, sorrow when he left us. And I love the fact that you are celebrating his life every year. People won't forget him, but it's nice to have someone just tap you on the shoulder and say, remember this and remember this, and here's something else about Tim you may not have known. So
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks so much.